Chapter 7. The Night of the She-Wolf. New York City had fallen asleep under a full moon that cast a cold, silver light over the skyscrapers, streets, and parks, and an apartment on the Upper East Side. Sayan stood motionless by the wide-open window. Her amber eyes sparkled in the moonlight, and her breathing was deeper, heavier, as if something inside her was awakening. Ancient instincts, inherited from bloodlines that people did not understand, had begun to overwhelm her. That night, the woman had become something else, a being between two worlds. A white she-wolf who could not be kept in cages. Vincent Russo, in his luxurious office, suspected nothing. He believed that his absolute control over Sayan was still intact. He had risen from his huge bed to give her final instructions, like a master leading his puppets. But as he approached the apartment, he felt a strange, wild smell that made his skin wrinkle. Finally, before he could knock on the door, Sayan, in her white she-wolf form, emerged from the shadows of the room with incredible speed. Her piercing golden eyes reflected the hatred accumulated over the years. The first attack was lightning. Fast. Vincent didn't even have time to scream. Sayan, with her powerful claws and the agility of a true predator, knocked him down instantly. The air in the room was filled with screams, whimpers, and the smell of blood. But this was just the beginning. She felt every lie, every betrayal, every moment of humiliation she had been forced to endure. Her primal instinct demanded revenge, and on this night, no one could stand in her way. Stepping out into the street, Sayan felt the city pulse around her. The tall buildings, the fast-moving cars, and the neon lights were no longer simple objects. They had become obstacles and targets on every corner. People who had participated, directly or indirectly, in her suffering became victims of her savage rage. Her claws made a metallic noise on the cold asphalt, and her screams rang out like a warning to the entire world. The first group of thugs, the men who had sold her and humiliated her, had no chance. Sayan followed them with precision and fury. Every move was calculated, yet instinctual. This transformation wasn't just physical, it was emotional and psychological. Sayan had become the perfect instrument of savage justice, cruel, relentless, and unforgiving. Sayan took revenge on the streets. 𝖭𝖃, who worked in his Bronx workshop, felt a deep unease. An old instinct, a blood bond he had never been able to deny, made him look up to the sky. The full moon looked down at him, and a cold shiver ran down his spine. He didn't know what was happening exactly, but he felt that his sister was involved. That night, Sayan did not stop until each person responsible for her pain had been defeated. Vincent Russo had fallen first, a symbol of the domination and cruelty that had been imposed on him. The rest of the group, which had controlled prostitution and violence, had no escape. Sayan had become a force of nature, a chaos controlled by a wolf's mind. The usually bustling streets of New York were now a hunting ground for an unstoppable creature. After the last victim fell, Sayan felt a deep emptiness. Vengeance was complete, but the price of transformation was high. Her body trembled, her mind exhausted by the intensity of the night. She retreated to a secluded spot, in a park on the banks of the East River, where moonlight caressed her white fur. Her instincts gradually subsided, and her body began to become the woman the world had known. Beautiful, but with eyes now more piercing than ever. 𝖭𝖃 arrived a few minutes later. He found his sister lying on the grass, transformed back into human form, her clothes torn and an air of victory and pain mixed together. Without speaking, he felt the weight of the night, the cruelty of justice, the need for protection, and the immensity of the power that Sayan had carried within her. "The moon doesn't disappear anywhere," he muttered, looking at the sky. "And I will never forget," Sayan replied, her voice trembling but determined. That night became Sayan's personal legend, the night of the she-wolf who brought justice in her wild style and the world of New York, A new balance had been born. The woman between two worlds had learned to combine instinct with reason, and 𝖭𝖃 realized that he would need all his skill and patience to help her navigate between man and she-wolf. And the following days, the city still trembled from the traces of the crime. The police searched for clues, the underworld disappeared, and the myth of the moon that brought a merciless hunt began to take shape. For Sayan, however, this was not just a night of revenge, but the beginning of a path that he would learn to control, a struggle between humanity and wilderness, between light and darkness, between life and instincts that cannot be completely mastered. New York City, York was slowly waking up after a night full of chaos, and the first rays of sunlight were filtering through the gray and ashen skyscrapers, reflecting on the wet asphalt. The streets were still full of echoes. The screams of the previous night seemed to vibrate in every corner, and the smell of fresh blood remained impregnated in the air. The local newspapers did not stop publishing articles about a white beast that roamed the city, killing without mercy, and who had managed to escape from every police trap. Each title was more sensational than the previous one. The She-Wolf of Manhattan, the monster under the moon, the White Hunt of Revenge, or the Night of Blood on the streets. 𝖭𝖃 was in John's studio in the Bronx, and although the world seemed to be functioning normally around him, a cold shiver ran through his body. The smell of burning iron in the workshop no longer had the power to calm him. Instead, another smell, the smell of blood, awakened all his instincts. 𝖭𝖃 closed his eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. It was a smell he had known since he was a child. It was the sign of the she-wolf. The sign of his sister. "It can't be," he murmured, his voice trembling. But the signs were obvious. The claw marks on the asphalt, the bloodstains reflecting the bright morning light, the marks of battle on the fences and walls of the buildings, all indicated her presence. This was not newspaper fiction. This was not an urban legend. It was Sayan, the she-wolf who had come out to get justice after being sold and humiliated. 𝖭𝖃 felt a deep fear, not for himself, but for his sister. He knew that her power was immense, but the sword of wild instinct was even more dangerous. In his heart, he felt that he could no longer intervene directly, that he could not stop her without being caught in the vortex of her violence. He sat at the workbench, trembling slightly, wringing his hands, looking at the hammers, anvils and sparks flying in the workshop. All of this seemed irrelevant now in the face of the chaos unfolding in the city. 𝖭𝖃 silently prayed to the spirit for his sister's protection. His thoughts returned to their childhood in years.The. He remembered the cold nights when Sayan wandered through the forest, and he had to protect her from the wind, from predators, from the darkness. He remembered 𝖭𝖔𝖆's sacrifices and the day their entire world had changed, the day the light had been overshadowed by pain and loss. Those memories made him understand better the nature of the she-wolf: anger, a desire for justice, and an inability to obey humans. 𝖭𝖃 felt he had to do something, but every step seemed risky. He feared that if he intervened too soon, he might cause a greater tragedy. Still, his helplessness tore at him. He imagined his sister's amber eyes, piercing and angry, shining in the light. The moon, the eyes that spoke to him without words: "Understand me or you will regret it." That morning, the newspapers continued to publish photographs of the street where the last victims had been. You could see the claw marks on the asphalt, the blood spatters and the panic of the witnesses. Each headline made 𝖭𝖃 feel more deeply the need to protect the city and, especially, to protect Sayan. He realized that the world could not understand what was happening. It was not just crime. It was pure instinct, savage justice, a force that transcended the laws of men. As he walked through the streets, 𝖭𝖃 felt how the city seemed to tense under the gaze of the moon that still flickered in the sky. He felt how all the traces were connected in an invisible thread, all the crimes, all the screams, all the fears of the witnesses. And he realized that this fight was only the beginning. The spirit of the she-wolf could not be stopped, but perhaps it could be guided. "Please, spirit of the forest and the moon, help her not to get lost," 𝖭𝖗 whispered, his eyes fixed on the sky. The noise of cars, the rustling of newspapers, and the cries of people now seemed like a backdrop to his thoughts. 𝖭𝖗 knew that no matter how hard she tried to hide, the wolf's instinct was unstoppable. Sayan was not just his sister, she was a force of nature, and every full moon night would bring blood to the asphalt until she learned to control her instincts. That winter morning 𝖭𝖗 felt the presence of a creature that did not belong in the world of humans, and 𝖭𝖗 silently swore to himself that he would be by Sayan's side, that he would seek any way to protect her and transform her rage into a constructive force. For the first time, he understood that the real fight was not against the world, but against his own wildness that defined Sayan.